Today we're going to continue with the KSQLDB series, and we're going to be seeing a series of episodes where we're going to learn about how we can query in KSQLDB, how we can query streams, how we can query tables, how we can manipulate the data with the queries, and how we can create new tables, derived tables that we can then put into Kafka. We will also learn how to do joins. So it's going to be a very exciting series of episodes that I hope are going to be very useful for all of you. Welcome to Programming with Mati. Okay, so the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to clone this GitHub repository. Don't worry, the link is in the description. And I'm going to be using the README file as a guide because it has everything that we're going to do. So if you follow along this README file, it will help you to do the whole thing. So what we are going to do is we're going to continue from the last tutorial we did on KSQLDB, where we created a table of players. So now we're going to use that table of players that we created in MySQL, and we're going to be using it inside KSQLDB. We're going to transform that data. Then we're going to create another stream of data. We're going to be able to use this data to transform it and put it into Kafka. We're going to learn about basic queries. So let's start with this setup. So our setup is going to have Zookeeper and Kafka. We're going to have a KSQLDB server with Kafka Connect. We're going to have the KSQLDB client and MySQL. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to get the data from MySQL and put it in Kafka, and then we're going to be handling that data and transforming it and doing queries on the data. So this has, as always, a Docker Compose file that you can see in the repository, and this Docker Compose has all these components. So I'm going to just be running the compose up command, and I'm going to wait for the Docker Compose to start every container. All right, so once everything is running, we can start using the KSQLDB client. So basically with this command, we're going to be opening the KSQLDB client. We're going to run the KSQL command inside the KSQLDB client container. So here we are. And here we have the KSQLDB client ready for us to use. And now the first thing we want to do with this is we're going to set the offset to the earliest so that we can read everything from the beginning of the topic. So we run the command, and now we're reading from the earliest position in the topic. Now we're going to create the MySQL connector like we did in the last tutorial. So we create the connector. If you haven't seen the last tutorial on the integration between KSQLDB and Kafka Connect, I really recommend that you take a look at that video. I'm going to put a link to it, but please take a look at that video, and after that, come back to this one. All right, so we created our connector. Now we're going to see if the connector is running, and as we can see here, the connector is running successfully. I'm going to clear the screen. And now also I'm going to show the topics just to see that we have the players topics. So we have the players topics. And now we're going to create a table. And this is called a source table. These kind of tables are tables that read data from Kafka. So remember in Kafka streams, we had tables and streams. We call them K-table and K-stream. So this is the same. So we're going to create a table that represents data that is in Kafka in a topic, in the format of a table. So with this command right here, I'm going to create a table. You see, we have the syntax is really similar to a regular SQL. It has some variations, but yeah, you can see create table players. The columns are the same columns that we have in the data. So if you look at the data that we inserted in the last video, it's going to have these columns. And now we have to add also these properties. So the data is going to be obtained from the topic players. And we're going to have the data in the JSON format, and it's going to have one partition because the topic has only one partition. We define the topic that way. So I'm going to create the table here. And now we have a table. So I can say show tables, and we can see that we have the players table. So now, how do we know what data do we have in that table? Do we have data? Do we not have data? So because this table reads data from a string, from a topic, we can read that table and it will have the data that was in the topic. So let's see how that works. I'm going to do a basic select statement. So we can see here, like we do in SQL, where we say select star from players. And we have to add this emit changes because this query is a query that has to be emitted somewhere. Either we put it in Kafka or we can emit it into the standard output, but we do have to emit it. So I'm going to run this command. And as we can see, we have the data about the players that we had in MySQL now lives inside the Kafka, and we have it also in our application. So let's stop this query with Control-C. And I'm going to clear the screen again. So let's talk about what kind of queries we can run. We can do projections with the data. What is a projection? Basically selecting the columns that we want from the table. Maybe we don't want all the columns, we want some of them. So a projection could be this one, where we only select the name of the player and the team. Remember, we always use emit changes. And you see, we have all the players, but only name and team. So really simple to understand. And you can see this is like paused in there. If by any chance I add a new player into the table, a new row is going to be created into this topic. And because of that, I'm going to have also a new row in this table. Also, if for some reason we update a player, what is going to happen is, because it has the same ID, that player will be updated into this table, because this table updates based on the ID. So that's why this is like paused, and the query is like not done. It's not like a regular SQL query where you do a query and you get the output and that's it. In here, the query always lives on until you terminate it. So I'm going to terminate this one. Here we are. And we can do other kinds of projections where we modify the columns somehow. For example, we can apply functions. In this case, I'm going to apply the function uCase, which is used to modify the data and put everything in uppercase for strings. So I'm going to put the name of the team all in uppercase. And now we see here the name of the teams are now in uppercase. And we can do all sorts of things with this. We can do, for example, for numbers, we can do operations with numbers, we can do operations with strings. There are all sorts of things that we can do. We also have conditionals that we can use in our projections. For example, let's say that we want to identify the players by status, and we want to say that if the name of the player is Lionel Messi, then he is a GOAT. And if it's another player, then just a player. So let's go and do this. How do we do this? It's easy. We select the name and the team of the player, but we also want to select the status. And the status is a calculated value. As we said, if it is Messi, then it's the GOAT, else it's player. So we use the case statement, where we open the statement with the case keyword and then we put conditions. When name equals Lionel Messi, then GOAT, else player. And here we can put multiple when statements. So it's not that we have only one. We can do as many as we want, and we also need to put an else just in the case that no condition is met. And this works like a regular switch case statement in a programming language, where the first one that matches is accepted and the value is returned. So let's do this. I'm going to put this query into the console, and we should see the statuses. As we see, Lionel Messi is the GOAT, the rest are players. It's really, really easy to understand because it's a very familiar syntax, because it's all SQL. We can also do filtering. How do we filter SQL? With the where clause. So let's say we want all the players that play in Manchester City. So we have a select star from players where team is Manchester City. So now we should have only those players. So we can see we only have those. We have Kevin De Bruyne and Bernardo Silva. Now we can have multiple conditions, and we concatenate conditions with the and or with the or keywords. So in this case, I'm going to say I want all the players from Manchester City and that are also from Belgium. So it should have only De Bruyne. And here we are. Only Kevin was returned. So really easy to understand what we are doing. We're filtering using the where clause and multiple conditions with the and keyword. All right, so far we have learned how to do simple queries, how we can create projections in our queries, how we can filter, and how we can use conditional expressions. So we have quite a nice idea of the kind of queries, at least the basic queries that we can do with KSQLDB. In the next episode, we're going to be learning about streams and how we can create derived tables and collections from our topics, and how we can put data back into Kafka. And then we will also be learning about how we can do joins. So I'll be waiting for all of you in the next episode.